Hey, hey.
Wow.
You guys.
How are y'all doing? Greg,
Yeah,
I like the
How
hat,
you
man.
doing? You like this?
My
Look
hat.
at this. So tonight is hat sponsorship night. If you look around the screen, it takes no less than probably $5,000, and then we get to wear a different hat, right? I mean, this totally makes sense, right?
That makes a lot of sense.
It's the hat flipperoo night. Look at that.
Oh, I still think one of the coolest logos out there is Mike's Bees, Easy Ox. Look at that thing. I don't know if you can see it.
I gotta make, you gotta, there you go. Look at that.
No bull mic control.
You gotta be kidding me.
Oh, Easy Ox.
I gotta get myself one of those.
Well, I did an interview with Mike at the conference, and he happened to have one. So there you go.
Wow.
Maybe he could get you one, Brian. I don't know. You'd have to ask him that question.
Yeah. I know Mike pretty well. I might be able to pull a string or two. Let's see what we can do. If Mike or Travis is listening, let's see if we can get Brian a hat here.
That's it. Wow.
I look at this brand new clean hat I've got. Look at this thing. It is clean. It is. You know. You want to know how clean it is? I just
look at
the
this
sticker off clean. Look at this. Mike's got you. Mike comes through. There it is. I had so much fun in Alabama with Bruce recently. You could have almost caught me wearing an Alabama hat, believe it or not. That was a good time down there, Bruce.
My Spartanburg Beekeepers Association shirt tonight.
You channeling the warmth in by wearing a shirt.
Exactly. Steve, what Bruce has to do is Bruce has to get it dialed in, because the truth here is Bruce.
Look at that. Look.
This was hand delivered by Greg at Nature's Image Farm.
Oh, look at that. Bruce has the limited edition. Look at that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Lighthouse edition. Oh,
pretty cool.
One of these things is not like the other.
Wow.
Greg, we ought to talk about that a little bit. That was a good time. Oh, by the way, the hat Greg has on is there were very, very few of those hats, and he ended up with one. He drove all the way to Alabama to get that hat.
How did I get it? Let's see if we can zoom in here.
All the way to Alabama.
Well, I can see your eyelashes. Look at that, Alabama friendly beekeepers. Get out of town.
Yep.
Isn't that a cool hat?
I only have 15 of them, and I'm just about out of them. So,
okay, I got to zoom back out here because I'm not sure how long my nose hairs are. Let me pull this rascal back here, son. There we go. That's better.
No, I was going to make. If you were zooming into your nose hairs, I was going to zoom in even further. That way we could see them. I wanted to see, man.
No good. We did. Hey, if you want to see the potential for nose hair, you have to. Bruce took a bunch of video. I took a little video. We had such a good time down in Alabama. A bead dial fidget spinner. Brian, let's do that. Queen Right dial fidget spinner edition.
It was a lot of fun, man.
What a cool. I mean, just. I don't even know what to say. I'm looking forward. Bruce put a nice little short video out that really summed up, I think, a lot of what was going on. The music was perfect. The video shots was perfect.
It was a reel on Facebook. I've got a more full-length video coming out on now, but yeah, that was fun. It's just a reel on my Facebook and Instagram, so check it out if you haven't seen it already.
That was cool. Yeah.
What a great time, to be able to. The folks know that we've been building up our business. This is not the first year we've been wax tipping. We've been doing it for many years now, and it keeps growing and growing and growing. And we've made a lot of pushes with the business to grow, and we can only do that because of the support of so many folks across the country, bee clubs, beekeepers, you name it, and so many great beekeepers and bee clubs in Alabama. All got on board and said, hey, if Greg's coming to Alabama, let's put an order together. And so we just stacked up all these orders, and we came down in a big way to hand deliver EnduraHive wax tipped equipment to so many folks. It was so cool. It was just, it's so neat to be able to have that kind of we had a rendezvous point at the Jenny farm, and just got to spend a little bit of time with each other. Went out to dinner with everybody, and just what a great day. I started off going down and seeing Mr. Dennis Sherrill. So shout out Dennis if you're watching this. Met him up in Montgomery, and then went down to see Bruce, and saw who do we have? We had Brian Lee down there. We had Jeff. We had Joey Rawls. We had Mike Berry. We had Brian Lee, the Brian Lee, and his Cybertruck shenanigans. That was cool. Miss Lisa and Kevin were down there. Got to meet Bruce's brother and mom. Just awesome folks. Went out to dinner, broke bread with each other. That was crucial. Just super, super important. And wait, there's more. Got to spend the entire next day with Bruce cruising around a couple bee yards, cracking lids and doing some bee work. And that was a lot of fun, Bruce. I think that's the highlight of it all, is definitely being able to break bread with folks, but to spend some one-on-one time with Bruce, just working together, cracking lids and pulling frames and reading bees and talking about this and talking about that. Boy, that is just some very cherished moments that I definitely won't ever forget.
Yeah, we had some really just great one-on-one time, and just were able to share some pretty special moments. So it was really cool.
That's awesome. And
Brian didn't come, man. We needed Brian. To come.
Brian, we got to get the stream team together, working a bee yard. We need a stream team bee yard edition video. We need to get all three of us together somewhere, working some bees, goofing off. Queen Right dial. It sounds like you and Bruce dialed it in. Boy, did we! I think we said that so many times. I think you might like to watch the video that Bruce does. I think we dialed it in there a little bit, Bruce.
Yeah, we did.
That phrase is literally like spreading across the country now.
It's viral. You could say.
If I hear like an executive order, let's get this country dialed in, I will lose it.
I can just see it. I can see it. Mr. President, this is an executive order 1464. This is to dial in American beekeepers, and he's going to sign it. You're going to hear that, and he's going to say, "Where's Jason Crook and Brian Kober? I want them to have this pen. Right? You're going to give me a pen. You guys are going to have the pen. It's going to be great. It's going to be huge. It's going to be great. Everyone's going to tell you how great it is. It's going to be great. It's going to be great." Too much fun.
Oh my gosh.
Too much fun. But man, I tell you, being down in Alabama makes me really want to reevaluate northern beekeeping. Being down there, Bruce has drones that are sexually mature, not purple-eyed drones, not just, she's starting to cap drones. I'm talking, I checked, right? And what an incredible thing to see drones with semen on their endophallus ready to rock and roll. I mean, they are randy and ready to go. So Bruce is in like prime time season. So to be down the very 1st of February to see bees getting ready to bust. Oh my gosh.
They're already starting to bust. We're going to be splitting, I hope, next weekend. So it's pretty exciting. It was cool, Greg, to be able to talk strategy with you and just kind of maybe help figure some things out too. So we just it was a good time.
Who's that joker?
Wow. Look at that joker.
There's Greg. We had the privilege when we pulled up to the bee yard, and the first thing I wanted to do was identify some boxes that needed to be replaced. And so I wanted Greg to have the opportunity to put the first one of his boxes in that bee yard. And so I have an Endura Hive from like last year, but these are the first. That was just kind of a trial that he gave me. But this is one. These are the first that I ordered, and it's got my logo on there, branded on there, and it was just a fun experience. There he is putting it on the colony.
That was quite an honor.
On the actual beehive. And then here's the one that had 2 boxes that need to be replaced on it. And believe it or not, that triple deep, Greg, it's full of bees, isn't it?
It is full of bees, guys. Unbelievable. It may from an asset and an investment standpoint, I keep asking, like, why am I up here? And then why am I wintering up north? It makes zero sense. It doesn't make bees better or hurtier because they're taking a nap up north. Good bees are bees that are productive, that make a crop. They're financially an asset.
That's crazy.
And when we have, it's like we're losing. It's like taking a pay. It's like taking a pay cut, a 40% pay, at least a 30% pay cut every single year because you like snow and ice. And I'm thinking, what are we doing?
Yeah.
It makes me really want to think hard about the next steps. But man, Bruce,
what do you think
I
of the
gotta say,
overall?
let's just get it on the record here, Bruce. I did not wear gloves, number one. Number two, I took very few stings. Very few stings. Some of them are on camera. I didn't even know I was getting stung. Bruce's bees have drastically improved since the last time that I was down there. Many of the colonies, I think we were shooting video. I'm not saying you should do this, but I'm a knucklehead. I don't think I was wearing a veil in some of the videos. They're just night and day difference. And Bruce has about 3 different behavior types that we had kind of identified. So it was neat to be able to see that over and over and over again. So guys, I am pumped up. I am just jacked up on being down there and just being a part of all that. And I'm ready. I'm ready. We'll talk more about that. How close is Ohio to lifting off and ready to jump? But Bruce, just thanks again, Bruce, for hosting that rendezvous point, helping to orchestrate that. Toby Reeder, another fellow I forgot to mention, was down there too. What a great opportunity.
Yeah, Zach Heinzelman's in here, and he says catching them now, he might mean he's catching my queens for. Actually, I think he said that when I said we're going to be splitting next week. So he's working on my order for next week. So, Greg, I'll tell you, we had, I think, probably in the Applin Farms bee yard, I would imagine 70% of those are probably Zach's queens, or maybe they requeened last year later in the year, some of them from either the early spring splits, the late winter splits, or the late summer splits. We have probably maybe 15-20% of them are actually just local stock. I have no idea where they came from, kind of bees. Some of those I would qualify are some of the queens I made last year. And then we have some of the VSH queens that there were about 2 or 3 that were a little bit feisty, and they were towards the end of chicking the bees. And so, Greg,
that's a gracious way of putting that, Bruce. Very gracious of you to say it like that.
You could tell which ones were
immediately.
We're good. Yeah. So, but a majority of those bees, Zach, last year, the story behind Zach Heinzelman's bees out of Hawaii is that last year, I think it was probably January, I was going through some bees, and they were just super agitated and crazy. And he was like, I need to get you some queens. And so we worked it out, and I got my first order of queens from him, and immediately the attitude started to improve. And I ordered some more from him late summer, and then we got some more coming now. So that my main goal with his, number one, they are very gentle. Number two, they are very productive, and they seem to be pretty good bees. You do have to treat them. They are not, there's no guarantees or no promises of mite resistance in them, but they're not horrible. They're not worse than a lot of the bees out there. They're just pretty, as far as that goes. But as far as the production and gentleness, they're very good. And we're still kind of jury's out on longevity. I've got to see. I've only had them for a year, so I have lost some of them. There were some that late in the year in those late summer splits, I think the splits weren't strong enough, and a few of those didn't make it. And then some of the ones from the early spring did fizzle out. But I think that's just queens you get from anywhere. You're going to have some that are absolute rock stars, and then a few that kind of fizzle out. But a vast majority of them are really good queens. And so Zach's in the comment. He's in the chat here, and I appreciate that, Zach. And then so anyway, I'm impressed. I just really, Greg, it's so much funner to work gentle bees. That's the biggest thing. That's one thing I'm working on hard right now is the attitude.
It should not be a luxury. I mean, I guess we take a lot of things for granted, being able to make queens and have a breeding program. You literally dial it in. You dial those things in. But seeing your bees, Bruce, 3 very different behavior types. It's I'm excited for you to see what the future holds. Having nice bees should not be a luxury. To me, that's something that you should be able to have in your operation. And I'll leave it up to you how much we get into some of the details on the 3 kind of personalities that we had sort of seen there. I would imagine if you put some videos out, you might start to we didn't take a video outlining that, but you might even through the videos start to see some differences there. And it's a really important feedback, because when you see certain behaviors and you see them in Ohio, you hear of them in Pennsylvania, you hear of them in Georgia, you hear of them in Alabama, and they're all doing the same thing. There's a common denominator. That's valuable information as beekeepers to have to say, do we move forward with this, or do we just is that back burner and let's go a different direction,
Yeah. Well, and I'll just be honest. I know that a lot of people just don't have a problem, and I've had bees now for 12 years, and the spicy bees, some people just don't mind. People in Texas, that's kind of what they're used to, a lot of places, and they just are, you suit up and they work their bees, and I've done that for years. But I just kind of decided a couple of years ago, really, I was already starting to decide this when you and Mike came over that day in late July, 2 or 3 years ago, and they were just off the chain, crazy mean. That's kind of when I think the desire really grew to just have some more calmer bees. But it's a process. I can't afford to like replace all my queens. I just don't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars with committed queens. And so it's a process. And I'm not saying, I'm willing to bring in some different genetics, but I hope we get it kind of dial it in to where I can, ultimately I would love to be able to have my own line where I can kind of reproduce my own queens, and there might be some works in the future with maybe some how can you say this,
collaborations,
Appalachian Bama, I don't know.
Alabation. That's nice.
I don't like that.
Some Nature's Image, Roll Tide, or Roll Coconut, says Jason said over here. Anyway, but I'm hoping to have some I'm really excited about this year. I think things are moving in the right direction. The attitude's getting better. The bees are looking strong for the most part. We did do some mite checks, and all this is going to be in the video, but for those who are on here, it's just the three of us, right?
Just the three of us. No one's listening. No one listens to this Wednesday night bee chat. There's 18 other Wednesday night bee chats to listen to. Why in the world would you pick this one out of all of them? Why in the world would you pick this one? I don't know.
I don't even know.
But we what was I even saying? I can't remember.
Dial it in.
I was going to talk about mites. I also talked about mites. We did check 4 colonies. We were kind of in a hurry, moving through them pretty quickly and trying to video some things, but I was able to use the standard yellow, what is it called? The mite check.
The Varroa Easy Check.
And then we also used the Randy
Oliver
wash cup, which is basically solo cups, and he's designed those in a really cool way, and that was so easy, and you showed me how to use that, Greg, so it worked out well. But overall, the mites looked really well. They were all within threshold. One of them did wash 3 mites, and so.
But what did it have before that? Maybe they have to watch the video to see how bad they were before.
Yeah, they were pretty bad before, but I had them knocked down pretty good. But still, I want to go into the spring with minimal mites, because I know that as the year goes on, they can grow exponentially. So anyway, it'll be fun. I've got a couple videos coming out. One of Friday when everybody came over here. If you saw my reel on Instagram and Facebook, it was really kind of a fun little reel. Lisa Grammy also did a little reel that she put up on Facebook that was really pretty cool. I think, or was it a YouTube video? I can't remember. I just know it popped up on my Facebook feed. It may have been a YouTube video, but it was really a cool little video of just a different perspective of that evening. But I'm putting out a longer, more full-length video that should be dropping here in the next couple of days of that experience on Friday when you brought everything down. We had a great collaboration with all those people from Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, and of course you guys from Ohio. And then I'm going to put out at least 1, if not 2 more videos on Saturday, but more to come on that. I'm going to do one of us working bees, and then I might just have one specifically for the 7 or 8 minutes, Greg, that you talked about, a certain product that you're pretty excited about. So I'm trying to decide how to do all that, but that's what's coming down on Bruce's Bees channel. It's just a phenomenal. I mean, I was so just at peace and just had such a wonderful experience after those 2 days. Just, a lot of it goes out to people right here. I'm looking right here in my comment section. You people right here, that's what it's all about. Like right now I'm getting chill bumps thinking about what a cool experience that was on Friday. And it was just 8 of us. We had 8 of us, I think, that showed up or something like. We had 8 of us that went to dinner. I can't remember. Anyway, we had more people. We had Toby. We had people from all over, Lisa. So we had what 10 or 12 people that actually showed up throughout the evening, but just the spirit of the whole afternoon was great. And we've got 100 and how many 156 people on here right now, so that's just a fraction of the folks on here. Everybody in this chat contributes to that feeling of just community, and we certainly do appreciate it. And we love you guys, and we love you being here, and just really a neat thing. And so I can't tell you how much I appreciate you bringing that stuff down, Mike. I know it was a business decision for you, and you were able to bring a lot of equipment down here, and I know people are going to be pleased with it. But just that experience was it'll be a highlight of my beekeeping career to this point. It was just a cool couple of days there.
It was so cool. I mean, we may just have to have like these little annual rendezvous points and places. It's just it's great to we meet here and we talk. I mean, Bruce and I we shot some video kind of talking about this. So I won't do a short story long here, but to go from the digital community to face to face at the expo is cool, right? But then when you take that vibe and feel to an operation, to a bee yard, like when we had here at the Creator Convergence, or down there at Bruce's place, when you're actually on the home turf of the beekeeper, it's just a different kind of vibe. It's so incredibly special. I'd like to see us do a lot more of that. Maybe the stream can figure out how to do some StreamTeam road shows and take the Learning Yard live and all three together, get to a couple places a year and kind of get this community together, like in the yard with bees, with smokers, it's just it's so hard to put into words. I won't spend any more time trying to, but Brian, we missed you, buddy. We've got to get you together, all three of us, cracking lids again. What a great opportunity.
What I just heard though is that the next Creator Convergence is going to be in Alabama.
Who knows?
Who knows?
We got a pretty good place to do it, Greg. We don't have quite the facility you have, but we could make it work, I'm sure. If
we might have to have maybe a spring and or a fall. I'm thinking since last year we didn't get the fall convergence going, maybe we've got to do another. Maybe we got to do a fall convergence up here.
Look,
and maybe we alternate years.
We could do an extraction convergence at Bruce's.
Oh yeah.
I like this Tom Sawyer paint the fence thing, Bruce. See where we're going here?
See?
Yeah.
See? An extraction convergence. Bruce would love that, have like 50 people show up when he's extracting.
Yeah, he would love it. Just doing it all differently. Hey Bruce, what do we Bruce, what do we what do we do? Bruce, where does this go? Where does this go? And then in 18 seconds flat, it's like swarm, it's like just Swarmageddon, Robageddon, right? There's bees everywhere. Everyone's just running for their life. No, just kidding, because Bruce has nice bees. He'll have nice bees by then.
Wonderful bees, the best bees.
The best bees ever. No, don't get me started. Seriously though, Bruce, your bees really have turned a corner in a tremendous way. So it's exciting to see kind of maybe we can work something out. Maybe we can get a little breeding program collaboration going on and help you dial in your goals for the next couple of years.
Absolutely.
Greg is pumped up and out of the winter blues. I think he got a beef, buddy. Did I? Let me tell you, I was able to take this is going to sound crazy, right? But I like getting stung to a certain extent. There's something about getting stung that just pumps you up, gets you going. Like my hands right now, my hands feel so good coming out of the winter. Took a few stings to the hand, took one into the face. It didn't help it didn't help me get any handsome. It didn't help the hair grow back. But man, just something about a little bee sting therapy early in the year got me fired up, Bruce.
You should have got some around your face. It could have been like the Botox effect.
Yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Hey, Brian, I just sent you another picture of what a typical box looks like we were going through the other day. Greg will be able to see it here. This is one I think that he actually cracked open. This is probably a pretty average. It may have been a little bit on the better end of what we saw, but we saw a lot of hives that look just like this. Can you zoom it out a little bit? Or anyway, look at all those bees.
That's nice. I can tell you whose queen was in that box too.
Yep.
Just by looking at that picture.
They were just chilling out, hanging out, looking at you. They were up dancing and doing the hula. If we'd have gotten out the the right music, we could have had them dancing the hula for us. They were just, they were really super gentle and nice. So anyway,
Man.
Anyway, but yeah, we did have quite the adventure, Greg. It was fun, and the bees, we did find about probably, I would say 4 or 5 that were a little bit off the chain, but for the most part, we probably went through probably around 50, and we may have had 4 or 5, maybe 6 that were a little bit, as they would say, chippy, but they did follow us the rest of the time, so it's a good thing we saw them towards the end.
I gotta look. I don't know if this video's. I don't know. See, when you're somewhere and you see stuff and you hear stuff and you experience these things, when you're a YouTuber, you don't remember sometimes if you're remembering it because you were there or you're remembering it because you're seeing it through a screen. So there might be some experiences that I don't remember if that was just in the moment or if it was recorded. But I can remember for sure. Bruce has a beautiful bee yard. One of these bee yards, and everywhere you go is gorgeous down there. I mean, I'll just Alabama, absolutely beautiful, just gorgeous. Everywhere we went was just stunning. But one of Bruce's yards down there had a beautiful water feature right behind it, and I can remember he's working, and we all of a sudden, out of nowhere, everything was going fine. We all of a sudden cracked the lid on a VSH. And it was just like that. Everything changed. And I look up at Bruce, and Bruce is kind of used to bees that maybe do some of this. When I see it, I know there's a problem because I never had seen this before until I had this a similar VSH experience. But when the bees start, like it's like the armory is opened up and there are being shots are just firing out of the colony at your gloves, at you. But they do this thing that I've only seen with this particular strain. They do this thing where they start bopping you in the veil, and then they do a swirl, and they just start swirling around your head nonstop. I looked over at Bruce and I said, "Holy cow, Bruce, you see that?" And I don't even think Bruce thought anything of it because maybe he's used to more of that than I am. But when I saw that, I'm just thinking, "What in the world?" And then it happened. Once that one colony did that, it set off a chain reaction from that colony to the last 8 or 10 that we finished up. They all were just it just
well, we talked about
like,
Greg. We talked about the difference between the stress level. It's like, and it's not like they're actively. I mean, there are a few stings. Like Greg, you worked the colonies barehanded the whole day, and it's not like they're severely mean or trying to super sting you. Really, they're just kind of bumping you, and it's like a shrill, that agitated buzzing that goes on. It just changes. It changes from a calm, hum buzz to more of a shrill sound.
Yeah.
And it's just, we talked about that afterwards. Jeff, Greg, and I were driving down the road, and we talked about what that does for just it's just like it puts, even though they weren't really stinging. I don't know if I got a single sting from those bees that day. I did get a couple stings, but I don't know if any of those particular bees got me. But the thing is, it just almost like the whole nature of your well-being. Instead of it being calming, it's more of there's like a low-grade stress that kind of happens. It's just from the sound of it and the excitement of all of it. And I think that at the end of the day, you're more worn out, you're tireder, even if they're not physically attacking and stinging. I think that, that's true, Steve. I don't think we dropped any frames that day though, but I think that there's just a difference in the way it affects your body as well. There's a stress level, and it kind of makes you tired faster. And so it wasn't, I mean, I'm used to it, my bees, but, it is kind of, there's an excitement that goes along with it, but with excitement comes stress, and it's just so much more fun. I've had calm bees in the past, but they were in the minority as opposed to the majority. And now that's flipping, and I love it. I think it's really cool, and I do appreciate having calm bees. And so anyway, but I just a phenomenal experience. Brian, we wish you could have been here. It would have been, I think you would have had a great, we had a great time. But
didn't I send you a picture of what I was doing?
Yeah, you were hunting.
I was up a tree. Yeah,
hunting. So yeah, you were having a good time too. But anyway, so we're 30 minutes into this thing, and
Bruce, you just mentioned something. I don't know if we're going to get right. Can we take just a couple minutes to outline what you just said there? Because I don't know that we'll ever be able to circle back to this because we're kind of in the moment on this thing. But there is something to be said about that relationship that you have with the bees in that moment that does matter long term. Like, I am really big on efficiency. Like, just like you, Bruce, when we went out to your yards, you had a plan. You had your fondant, you knew where the shims were, you had the DFM, right? It was a sequence of events that are lined out. So when you work that yard, you can work through the yard, right? Rather than circling back and going to the truck and where is this? And now what do I do? And I don't know what decision to make, and and all that circling back and forth and chasing your tail. Like, that can lead to catastrophic failure when it comes time for you to make a really important decision. You're so tired and worn out from running in circles that you're just trying to get through colonies. What am I actually looking for, right? And sometimes you make poor decisions. But when you get everything set up, everything lined out, everything ready to go, and you have a plan, you execute that plan, and then the overall end product is colonies that all receive the same kind of attention, the same kind of care, and that creates one of the most important things is consistency in a bee yard. And that's exactly what Bruce and I did in his yard, is create consistency by going through all these colonies. Was there brood? Were they building up? Did they have fondant? Did they have DFM? And just cruise through the whole entire thing.
Did they have drones? You check some of my drones for me.
Did they have drones? Were the drones mature enough to be heading down the road? So one thing that you notice is anyone who, like, this is going to sound silly, but if you've got a diesel truck, right, and you're sitting in your yard and you're in park and the engine's on, it has this beautiful idling purr, right? And it's calm, right? But you know it's a workhorse. It's calm. It is ready to go as soon as you drop it in gear, right? When you have calm, nice bees, when you crack the lid and you're working that colony, it's like having that diesel motor that is just purring. It's calm. It's ready to work. Everything is firing. Everything is beautiful, right? And you get used to that. And that creates a rhythm as you are working through colonies. Right. Then all of a sudden, when you crack a lid and something is bad, wrong, or way different, it's like all of a sudden you go from sitting in your truck cab and having an idle diesel motor, it goes to somebody going down the street on a crotch rocket or one of those rice burner muffler things, or a weed whacker just all of a sudden that sound and frequency is way revved up, and it catches your attention. With bees, when they do that sound is revved up. It's that weed whacker, the rice burner, the crotch rocket. It's that and then a lot of times in both of these cases with the other two behavior types that we had seen, the next thing that followed was a not just an audible change, it was a physical change. Now one set of the bees were just kind of bouncing off, checking things out. They were loud, not a big deal, right? Those were the Alabama bees. And then that third behavior were the bees that they were, as soon as you cracked the lid, they were hitting a rev limiter. These bees were blasting your chest, your veil, circling the whole, like it was three separate. Why does that matter? Because when your body goes into not just fight or flight, but it goes into this guarded mode, because your body knows when I hear this revved up, cranked up sound, the next thing that follows is bees doing what they do. And naturally, your body has a guard and a mechanism when that happens to react, right? And even when you're trained and you get in that motion, like you're still working smooth, you're working through, you've learned how to control your breathing and your mind, and you're working through that no matter what. But it takes extra energy to do that. And after you go through 1 and then 4 and then 10 and then 20 and then 1 yard into 2 yard, that heightened state of awareness as the beekeeper, to force yourself to focus and to get into that motion, that is extremely taxing and wears you out. You can work a yard of 48 of calm bees. You can work it and go on to the next yard still whistling. But if you get through the first 6 and you hit those bees that hitting a rev limiter, and they're those crotch rocket bees, it starts to wear you out, right? Just like chasing your hive tool or chasing your smoker all day long in the bee yard, you feel it when it's time to go to bed and you feel it the next morning. The same thing happens when you work bees that are causing that heightened awareness. It wears you out mentally and physically. At the end of the day, we got to work through all these colonies, make good choices, make sure they're moving forward. And having bees that don't have you at like full alert and high guard, that makes a big difference.
I would say I do want to clarify something though, Greg. We talk about 3 levels, but there are a couple of levels higher than that. I mean, I have had bees in the past that were absolutely, they just were stinging, like they stung you constantly. Like they weren't just bumping you and warning you. The bees I would describe the other day as they were warning us. They were saying, okay, we don't like you here, but they weren't really physically. If they would have been like the ones where that one day up in Ozark where you had 84 stings in your hand, I mean, that's the next level. These bees were not like that.
I didn't see any of that fourth level. Yeah.
There was never like we all took, I think some of the stings I took in my wrist were just from some of the column bees. I may have swished them or something, but there were none that were just absolutely off the chain attack
not like the last
time.
The
heck out of you. They weren't balled up on your wrist and in your ankles trying to get to your seat. They weren't like that, but they were just flying around, and really it was like an anxious moment. I think the weed eater versus crotch rocket, it goes from calm, like the purring, to there's a lawnmower weed eater next door that kind of gets on your nerves a little bit, to to that next level of crotch rocket. I think that's a good thing, and it's probably a similar BuzzCom 4 is kind of a similar. It's kind of a rush in a way. It's an exciting thing, but it's also it kind of wears you out. It's anxiety is something that we have a lot in our society, where people just are always tired, always fatigued, always worn out because they're anxious all the time, and that's kind of what happens if you work those bees that are more flighty like that, or more at a higher pitch. It's that same thing. It's like it just wears you down. I don't know. We talked about this. I remember in the truck we were talking about how, it's like it's just a heightened state of awareness. The bees are in a heightened state of awareness, and we're in a heightened state of awareness, and it just requires more energy, even though what we're doing is not different. It's just that.
That's
all
good.
The bees flying around, that energy goes up. The energy expended by both the bees and the people, it just becomes quite the adventure. And if you're an adrenaline junkie, you might like it, but you can't hold out to do it.
That's taxing.
All day long. So
that adrenaline dump and gain is really taxing. Yeah. You said something there, and when maybe we'll leave it here. We'll leave it be, and then we'll dial in the rest of this conversation tonight. But what you just said there is so super important, because I don't know much about this, and I think people call it like, what's the word? Like horses are, or Bruce would get it. Bruce totally gets it, because your mom's got a horse farm, beautiful horse farm. Is it called? I don't know exactly what it means. So if I'm getting too woo-woo, forgive me. I've heard folks refer to horses. Is it a sentient creature, or something that they can pick up? They can read you just like you can read them.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more to it. Maybe that's way overboard. But bees are very similar too. And when you're now cranked up and revved up and on alert, and you're going into that next colony, I do think that they pick up on that, and they know that, right? And then they reciprocate. A lot of this relationship and behavior back and forth, I think, is reciprocal. So when you get a couple knucklehead colonies that start this chain, what I saw, Bruce, is I saw a lot of the other bees reciprocating the same attitude of the bees that I had watched swirling you and then following you around. You have the same probably 200 bees swirling you like for 20 minutes as you were going through all the colonies to work those. And so as you're cracking lids and you've got these crotch rocket bees, they're just constantly going, those bees that you're getting into that next new hive, they reciprocate. They say, what's going on here? And that can set off a chain reaction. It's just another, I think, testament that having bees that are calm and gentle, that you can work, that aren't knuckleheads and causing chain reactions, that's really important. And I'll leave that there for now.
And there are some great comments in here about all this. Someone talked about the bees burying themselves in your cuffs. That's a sign that they're ticked off. And anyway, and Glade says something that's important here. He says one time he had to step away for a few minutes. And when they get that way, sometimes you can step away. Like if we got and sat in the truck for a few minutes and come back out, and then got into the rest of the colonies, it probably wouldn't have been a big deal. But we were kind of getting in that. What we did was we filmed 2 videos of a hive, the one where Greg put his box on the Endura Hive box on there, and then the one where I did it, and 2 different colonies. Actually, were very different strengths. The one Greg opened up was very strong. The one I opened up was mediocre. And then I think we did one more, and then we just got a game plan, and we just went to work. We just went down. Greg got on one side, I got on the other side of the row of colonies, and we just went down. And as we were going, we were talking and communicating back and forth. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Do you think we should keep this? Should we adjust that? What do you think? Check out this drone. Crotch rocket these. Golly, that's
Nice.
awesome. But we were like, it was really cool to have someone, and we could just consult with each other on it. And we got in that mode where we were just in a groove, and we had Jeff there. Jeff, I can't reiterate how much Jeff came down with Greg. Jeff kind of works with Greg up there on the farm, and how much of a help he was. Just he was kind of like he was going to get in the fondant, cutting it, getting ready, getting everything ready to put on the hives, and he hopped in a little bit and kind of helped with a few things, but he was an invaluable help up there. I wish I had a Jeff with me down here to work my bees with, but it was just a phenomenal experience, man. And then we went over to Slocum, and it was more of the same. I think we had a couple over there that were a little bit feisty as well, but a very similar experience, actually, probably percentage wise. Maybe the percentage is a little bit higher of the more agitated bees over there, but it wasn't horrible. And then we did find the colony over there that had 3 mites in it, which within threshold, but I don't want it to end up being way out of threshold by the end of the season. So I'm trying to figure out how to address that. So great experience, Greg. I appreciate you coming down, and more to come. I'm going to get some videos out on this. I hope they're good videos. I've got a lot of good footage. I hope I can turn them into something that people want to watch.
Shenanigan alert. There's probably going to be some goofing off. There's probably going to be not taking things so extremely serious. But I hope you guys enjoy. I know I enjoyed it. I'll look forward to seeing this. I got to check out Lisa and Mike's video too. Yeah.
Little spoiler alert. Brian made the video, though he wasn't there, kind of, sort of. Like his name is mentioned in the video. Right.
That's it. Honorable mention.
Anyway, so just it's not that big a deal, Brian. It's you already have the clips I'm talking about, so you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So now
we're
what?
going to make cameo appearances great again, guys. Okay, we're going to.
Right. Yeah.
Wow, guys, we have 160 people in here right now, basically 159, which is it seems like the averages of the chat have gone up. I think part of it is the season, and part of it is I think our community continues to grow, and I say it's our community. It really is just the community of everyone that enjoys these, and but I just love having folks in the chat here, and all the participation. I don't know how many comments you've had, Brian. It's been phenomenal in the chat. Everybody's talking, and there have been so many great comments about the attitude and stuff. I was focusing on what I was saying. I didn't get to read them all, but we appreciate all the people that are contributing to the chat. 3 of us talking would be pretty boring if it wasn't for all the people in the chat that make it possible.
Wow, we're getting there. We're getting there. Getting close.
Is that Lee's work, or is that you, Brian?
Lee. Oh yeah.
Shout out to Lee. I don't get to see enough of that guy. But man, when you talk about guys that are in this beekeeping community, big shout out to Mr. Lee, Kodiak Farm himself. Just a super humble, super awesome guy.
He's got it dialed in.
This guy is not only is Lee squared away, he is dialed in. So appreciate you, Lee. Hopefully we get to cross paths again sometime. But Brian, what do you want to talk about tonight? That was a great little in the hive mind kind of chat. But what are we talking about tonight, Brian?
I'm just sitting here. It's almost like folks are working their bees. I'm stuck in the north, so it's all good.
Do you want to give a little? Do you want to? I've got some inside information when it comes to Ohio in spring. I don't know if you are interested in potentially hearing this or not, but I have got some very, very exciting, very secret, very exciting. Everyone tells me how exciting and how secret this news is. It's going to be great. It's ready. Are you guys ready? No one's ever done this, the likes of which have never been seen. Are you ready for this update?
What's up?
Let's hear it.
Yeah, but the rat.
It is. Puxatawny Greg. Guys, this is a big deal. Okay? This is a really, really big deal.
Greg.
This is such a big deal that I realize that once I say this, I can't unsay it. And I will no longer be, I will be unburdened by the burden of winter as soon as I say this. You ready?
It almost
Guess what I heard
sounds
reports
like
of today?
Greg is about to be
Yes.
unburdened by what has been.
Ohio beekeepers, listen up. Guess what made an appearance today?
A drone?
Not a drone. The first harbinger of spring.
Red maple.
The robin.
Robin. Okay, robin, yeah.
What?
The robins are showing up, and this morning it's not even light yet, and I'm heading over to the farm, and I heard that chirp, and it took me, I didn't even think about it until later, but it's that familiar robin sound. And at first I'm thinking, I mean, I was just down in Alabama, guys, right? So it's like I'm actually already in, I'm past spring. I'm in late spring mode is what it seems like down there. Probably not late spring, early mid spring is where early spring is where Bruce is at. Well, not only is there robins, but I've been having a little bit of windshield time, let's just say. And as I cruise around Ohio, guess what I'm seeing? I'm seeing the tree canopies and the tree heads are all turning crimson burgundy. Like life is now shooting into the tree heads. The robins are here. And I look at my great spring forecaster, my maple tree that's right here. It's right here by the milk house and the bank barn where the horizontal hive is. And I'm seeing the tips of those branches start to swell. I think we're only probably 2 or 3 weeks away from maple bloom, no more than 4. The robins are here. The maples are going to start blooming. Guys, it's going to be great. We're going to make beekeeping great again this spring, and I can't wait. I am so looking forward. Oh, okay, maple sap. Folks are tapping the maple trees.
Yeah.
Right? We're right there in that season. And what puts a halt to maple tapping is when those maples go buddy. When those buds start to swell and open, then the sap turns bitter, it turns cloudy, it turns darker, and usually that's time to cut it out. We are so close. Like, I think 3 to 4 weeks, it's going to get really real around here, which, Brian, you're probably going to be in that 4-week time period.
Do you guys, so every year I talk about the one tree that's always like that early one. It's always that early maple in the yard. There are small little, where you can see they've started. They're not quite a centimeter, but you can see them, literally the branches polluted with them.
Wow.
And I was walking Eli out the other day. I looked and I thought, what? You know, like it caught me off guard where, you know, just because, I think mainly because of the winter that we've had so far, it's just been so cold, you know, and we haven't had like the typical ups and downs. It's just been that straight cold. And like, I'm looking at the forecast, the weather, and like the next 2 weeks, I think one day we hit 41, but other than that, we're in the 30s, and we've got a couple nights like tonight, they're saying 18. And I'm looking at this tree and I'm like, well, that tree knows.
Does the tree know that the forecasters don't? Do you know, in my opinion, do you know what the special, there's a secret sauce. There is actually a very special formula that happens. And when this occurs, it sets it into motion and there is no turning back. You know what that is, Brian?
What's that?
So right now, if you were to take a FLIR or an infrared, and you were to go ahead and go out, even when it's 18 or 20, what you'll probably see, those maples look like they are hot on fire, right? Because they are bringing everything up from the roots, and that sap is starting to flow, right? And those trees are warming. It's creating little microbiomes and such. But in my opinion, what really sets off and puts the plants in motion that they do not turn back from is when you have 3 days in a row where that soil temp hits 50 degrees Fahrenheit. 3 days at 50, it turns the key and opens up the door, and boom, spring runs right through it, and she doesn't get cold feet. It's just go, right? You might have some cold snaps, you might have some cold spells, but those plants don't stop. That's when we see the maples turn it on, and boy, you will know it in a hurry. But I am so pumped because here we are. And we all could really use a really good year. I'm also hearing some catastrophic loss reports. especially in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And we got we got a lot of people checking in now. Just for the last few minutes, we got a lot of names I'm familiar with.
Mr. Medeiros.
Some I'm not. Yeah, Chris Medeiros is in here. Some folks that maybe I've seen before, but maybe not. We got Bruce Brown, Mary Wickenheiser, just a lot of familiar names. Some that might not be familiar. Just so much. Just a great evening. Great evening to have a chat.
Yeah, good
and
stuff.
Like that, we have nothing left to talk about. Dead air.
I can't.
Dead air makes me nervous, guys.
Honest,
Obviously.
I can't wait to get things going. I mean, I've lost a couple. I went into the winter with 8, and I've got 5 now. So I lost a couple. It is what it is. But I can't wait to get this year started. Just from how our winter is, I think it kind of normalized things. And I expected to lose 2. I knew that I was going to lose 2 of them. Just look at that.
Congratulations for losing 2. All right.
I don't know. I don't know what
way to go.
I don't know what happened there. That's crazy. I'd say I lose colonies and I got balloons flying behind me. Way to go, Apple. Siri's mocking me. But no, seriously, I knew I was going to lose that. And even if I come out with 5, I'm going to split them, and that'll take me to 10. And then I've got 6 packages ordered, so that's going to go to 16. And then my plan there is I probably am going to let them build a little bit and then pull some splits off of them, because I want to go. I'm looking. What I have in my head right now is I have to this year be at, by the end going into the winter, I've got to be at 20 to 25. Got to. So that I can maintain numbers. And, yes, I'll have losses. Every year I'm going to have losses. But in order to kind of stay where I want to be at production-wise, with my honey customers and all that, I need to be at, not Brian 40, but I need to be at 20 to 25. Then say I go to 25. If I lose 5, 6, 7, well, I still am in the teens, but I can't teeter-totter like where I'm at now. I can't do it. So, but
getting too close to the razor's edge there. The sad part is, I'm hearing and seeing reports. If folks were in the -10 to -23 actual temp belt, there's a belt that's kind of it's where I'm at. It's a little bit below me. It's maybe an hour north, and it goes from on the western side of Indiana all the way kind of through Route 70, kind of all the way into Pennsylvania, and then it kind of dipped down not too far from the eastern shore of Maryland. When we had 6 days in a row that the actual temps, the lows were -5 to -14 Fahrenheit actual. That's not wind chill. That's actual. Yeah. With wind chill, we were upwards of 23 to -29 degrees Fahrenheit with the wind chill. Yeah. It's been said, and we've said it a million times, that the cold weather doesn't kill the bees, except for when you get that cold. That all bets are off, because those bees, they cannot thermal regulate at -23. They can't do it. And so I know what we have seen here at the farm is I got too complacent. I got too comfortable with the wintering orientation of these colonies. Colonies that are on the top of hills or were getting blasted by wind. And when this cold snap came in, the angle was just a little bit different too. And so when you have -15 and -23 with wind chill blasting those sides of colonies over and over and over again for 6 days straight, it didn't matter how big the cluster was, it eventually wipes those ones out. And what was interesting is you see everything on the wind side were wiped out, and then ones that were either on the other side of those or a pallet or 2 over that caught a little bit of the windbreak from the pallet next to it, no problem, fine. So windbreak it was huge just because of that really deep cold. I told folks recently, it's like now all of a sudden we're like central and northern Canadian beekeepers all of a sudden, and no one here is equipped for that. No windbreaks, none of those kind of things. So it really makes me want to reevaluate specifically the positioning of where we put colonies, and trying to find a home for 2 or 3 or 4 colonies, no big deal. But when you're getting into a little higher numbers than that, trying to figure out, okay, where do I put them? You only have so many western breaks. You only have so many north and western breaks to put bees. So now next year, I've got to really reevaluate, like, where do we stick all the colonies to overwinter them here? Like, there's only so many breaks and so many things that you can do. And so that's interesting. That has been a new curveball for us, where it is the -7, -8 up to -29 for 6 days in a row. That's asking an awful lot.
Yeah.
For these bees.
When I went over and checked, and I was bummed when I saw that I lost an extra one. Like, I knew I was going to lose 2. And when I saw there was a third one, I talked to Bruce on the phone, and I was just like, man, this is, it hits you. And like, I'm sitting there, and I didn't post anything on any of the interweb stuff, because everybody, they always jump to, oh, it was mites, it was this, it was that, all this and that, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, my highest mite wash last year was 3. So my mites didn't get out of control. They were fed, they got weight. It's just, they were in such a small cluster that, and Bruce hit the nail on the head. I mean, we had, what was it, like 4 days or something like that, where we were negative double-digit temperatures. They can only do so much. And when you're negative double digits, when you're walking outside in your yard throwing a mug of water in the air, it freezes.
It's freezing. Yeah.
Can only do so much.
I feel like, Brian, and we discussed this, how, I mean, the bees are equipped, like we said, Greg, to handle cold, but that is extreme. And so if it gets that cold on a consistent basis, that might be where you might have to do some of the wrapping of the hives and things like that, because, and the windbreaks and all the things. And that's where people put them in sheds. But, you don't want to do it you can't do it for a week and then end up having to get them out the next week because it gets too warm. So it makes it difficult. But I just think
scale makes it difficult. If you've got 4 to 10 colonies, okay, maybe we can figure something out. But what do you do if they're by the pallets or by the yard quantity? Like, now what do you do?
Yeah,
exactly, and you're just waiting for it to end.
It's just crazy. Yeah, it's so I think that you really can't. I don't know that you can really get frustrated and think that, hey, I'm not doing what I should do. I just think this is an extreme situation, and so I don't know, man. I mean, we had some cold weather. We had snow down here, like a real snow, but it was, I mean, you see how it was a week later, Greg. It was 65, 70 degrees, and it was that way the whole week. Beautiful. Right after that. And so, we never, ever has it ever gotten cold. I don't remember it ever getting to 0 here. We've had some single digits a couple of times in my life, but 0 is just, it's unheard of here. But for you guys to be -17 real temperature or -19 and not above 0 for several days, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And
you can only do so much. And I mean,
and I think if you have a kind of a really large cluster that can generate more warmth, maybe that's a little better. But those Carniolas are geared towards the smaller clusters and overwintering in cold weather. So, but in a situation where it's that intense, I don't know if the larger cluster would help or not. But I don't know what you can do. But you have 5 of them that survived, Brian, and so something about those bees, they were able to pull through. So, but there's nothing. I don't think you've done anything wrong. You've been very particular in how you've treated, fed, you've observed, you've done everything you possibly could. And so I just think it's one of those things you have to chalk up to just Mother Nature just doing her thing, man.
It's bee farming, guys. You've got good years, you've got bad years. That's all that it is. Just figure it out, move forward.
This year, though, and it's like, some people will say, whatever, you got 5 colonies and, I'll be fine. I'm not, if this was 5 years ago, I would be stressed as all get out. But I know what I need to do, and it'll be fine. And I'll be, I said, and I don't even want to hear it because I know Mike Berry's in here lurking and Jason's in here. I know. And
Mike Berry's here. Barry's best.
He's in here. He's in here.
Just saw Mike.
There's lurkers. And I know people are saying this and that and whatever. And years ago I said, 8 is a good number that I'll be at. And then that went up. And I know Mike, his ears just perked up, right. Hail Hive, Silver Diamond, White Trash. He's in here. And then I went to 2021 and I wasn't quite dialed into that scale. That was my problem 2 years ago. I didn't have it all like you guys were saying. You have to get a plan set and you stick to it. And like what you're saying with Bruce's yard, you just cruise through it. And it's just like a rinse and repeat. You go into this one, rinse, repeat, go into that one, rinse, repeat. And it's just a smooth kind of process. I didn't have that smooth process. It was just, if you would have saw me that year, it was chaos. Because I was like, oh my God, I got this many bees, and I ended up giving a couple away. And, it got overwhelming. But this year, it'll be different. I've already said, I already told my wife, I'm like, hey, I'm probably going to have to hit the bees twice a week. That way I keep things in positive. So this year will be fine. It's honest. It's going to be fine because, April, second week of April, there's going to be packages coming. So that's going to jump the numbers. As soon as I can split, that's going to jump the numbers. I'm going to get my resource colonies out there. And if I see colonies that, and this was always a mistake of mine in prior years. And I remember last year we had this talk. I've always, when I split colonies, the one thing that I know a lot of people do is you'll only leave a certain number of cells back.
Mm-hmm.
I would leave 10, 12. And I would literally
opportunity.
I would let WrestleMania happen. It was like John Cena and everybody else where they were thrown in there and the suplexes were going on. I let the battle royale take place.
Off the turnbuckles.
This year, though, when I find frames like that, what I want to do, and I probably am going to take a hit as far as my honey production, but if I produce enough to just sneak through the markets, that's fine. If I run low at the end of the year, so be it, I run low. But what I want to do this year is if I see those frames like that, well, I'm going to supplement out and small splits and then build them. I'm looking at this year being that build year where I can get up to that number instead of, I think what hurt me years past was, well, one, I was focused on, I always want to produce honey. I've had a couple good years. And when you're, just that backyard beekeeper and you're pulling 500-600 pounds of honey and you're making a couple thousand on selling honey, the dollars, they kind of light your eyes up, and you get focused on that. You just get so preoccupied on that one item that you let other areas slip. And this year I need to ahead of time. I already know what I want to do, and that's grow. So if I have to kind of set a little bit of the honey production aside, of course I still want to produce some, but this year has to be my grow year. So see, look, I knew he's lurking.
Wait, Brian, one thing
knows.
One thing
Mike
we talked
knows
about.
He's been there.
One thing we talked about was I can't remember where I heard it from. If it was, I don't know, but somewhere down the road, it may have been someone in this chat. I can't remember because I talked to so many people, but somewhere someone talked about in your bee operation, you have a goal of a certain number of production colonies.
Yeah.
And Brian, I know you've put together a few resource hives over the years, but I don't think it's a bad idea to have, build up your production colonies that you want, and then have, in other words, have as many as you.
Huge.
year for Brian.
Huge year for Brian.
Basically, have your total numbers have a third that are kind of like
Greg,
nukes.
hang on one second, Bruce. Greg, do that again.
Huge year for Brian.
That's perfect. Perfect. Yep.
Go ahead, Bruce.
But yeah, you know, kind of if you want to have production colonies, you're probably going to lose some every year. I know I do.
Yeah.
And I've got, you know, my goal is like last year, I think I finally reached the goal of having actually 100 production colonies. And at the time, right before I harvested, I remember going because I'd never really taken account before to see what I had. I knew I was around this number, around that number, but I had 144 total colonies. That meant new splits like they were in nukes. That meant just kind of standard regular hives that were growing, and then 100 production colonies. So I think might not be a bad idea to plan on having and trying to build up to about a third more than what you need.
Yeah.
So then as you have those losses, you know, maybe a third of your colonies could be in nukes to kind of try to get through the winter. Maybe, I'm not sure how it works up north, but just have a couple different categories of colonies. And that way, come spring, if you do lose some of your production colonies, you can just plug those nukes in there. And
30 hives would be 50 Canadian.
That's
Our
awesome.
poor Canadian friends, boy, they're getting beat up right now, aren't they?
Well, so does that mean if Ian has 1,500? Does that mean if he were in the States, he'd only have 1,000?
900
by
probably.
Steve's logic, that makes sense.
Steve's
Yeah.
logic. Yeah. Huh.
Good old Steve, Merlin Olsen look-alike. Just very similar
Yeah,
personality
good
on
dude.
Merlin Olsen. Yeah, he's awesome.
You are
General
right
Bryant.
in that, and that's why I want, you know, if I figure if I get to 20 to 25, then I can maintain in my like 15 and above.
Yeah.
Because I know that I'll have losses. I mean, like, you know, a couple years back I lost, I think I went into the winter with 13 or 14 and I lost one. That was an anomaly, you know, and for me, I was thrilled. I'm like, coming out of the winter and I lose one, I'm like, well, I'll take that 90 some percent, you know, survival. I don't expect that every year. So, you know, 20 to 25. And if I come
That's on
out
regular years. Then you have a year like this where the worst drought, the likes of which have never been seen, no flow, right? And then a warm, wet, and then a warm, wet winter to start, right? And then, I mean, incredibly cold, sub-zero, like lethally cold temperatures. I mean, that is not ideal. And so it's hard to gauge everything. All the things that I've ever done right and have always worked, right, were perfect, worked fine until they didn't. And colonies at the very top of hills or on the western side of a hill, like they were smoked. They could not handle 6 days of -5 to -23 in a row. If it was just one day or two, and then it was regular, and then one, like, no big deal.
Yeah.
But bees can only do, they can only do so much, and we can only do so much. And your inventory of assets, the number of colonies that you have in your yard, you guys just touched on it. You can only do so much with those. And if you try to do too much with all of them, right, then you will pay the price. But maybe allocating this many to play with, this many for honey, this many, right, and then mitigate the risk as best you can.
You know, even when you watch people like Bob Benny, and the day I spent with Seth working with him, I mean, they have empty slots on the palace, and they're always just replacing those. They're trying to figure out how to replace those empty slots. And so, you know, even the commercial guys, they have a method where when they recognize the dead out, they don't get too worried about it. They just, you know, pull that box off or stick some more resources in there, and they just fill those spots.
Just keep
moving.
moving.
If you got nukes or if you got hives available, just to, you know, you have your main spots, you got your 15 to 20 that you have on your production.
Bruce just muted himself.
Bruce just muted himself. I mean, it's a conspiracy.
He bumped. He was so excited about it. He bumped into his mic and muted himself.
I bumped my mic, my arm here, and it muted me for some reason. But
Bruce is going to say there's going to be huge.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah. So I just have your spots singled out that you want to do for your production, and then maybe have some other off to the side or whatever, kind of like your resource stuff, and then just use those to plug and play. You know, when those die out, you'll have something to stick in that spot and just rock on with it. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Maybe we get some we'll wrap up maybe with some questions. I'll say this. If you are in that sub-zero lethality belt where you're experiencing loss, just know you're not alone. There are folks all across there who have done things right for a very long time who still are suffering, even us included. We lost some to that, but you can't let it eat you. You can't let it get you down. This is bee farming. And if you farmed anything else in the world, if you've ever grown tomatoes or okra or tried to grow sweet corn, and just when you get it right, the raccoons sneak in and pull it down, and they poop all over the place, and they're laughing and snickering on your trail cams, right? It happens. It's farming. You got to take the bad with the good. Let's just hope and pray that we've got some good seasons coming. But this is, I can tell you, we have had a run on nukes, and we've had a run on packages, because so many folks this last week have been out to check. And I'm talking folks are coming and buying packages of nukes from many states surrounding, right? So this is widespread. And folks the orders are coming in hot and heavy. And folks are trying to get their orders in before we get sold out. And just know that this is where we're at. But this next year, I hate to say this, but guys, if it gets any worse than this last year that we had, we got bigger problems. We got bigger problems. So let's just hope and pray for a bumper crop year of bees. That sounds nice.
Someone asked the question, what to do with dead outs. That's a really good question. Because
let's get to some questions. Leave them in all caps, and we'll get to them. Bruce, what do you do with dead outs?
There's some good answers. Mike says, Mike Art says, protect your drum wax. Steve Amos says, packages fill up the dead outs. Some great ideas. What I do, it depends on the time of the year. Greg, you probably saw a little bit of this, but I don't know if, we did drive through the bee yard where I had, what I do originally, if I don't have time to process those dead outs, I just turn them on their side so the light can get to them and the air can get to them, and that'll help prevent hopefully some wax moth damage. It doesn't always work, but lots of times it will. And I'll turn them on their side and lay the lid on top so I know they're dead outs, and then I come back and I try to store it. You saw, Greg, I actually had quite a few boxes just tipped on their edge, just laying around out there, and I found that if you do that, if you keep the air to them, they typically don't get a whole lot of wax moth damage. If you stack them up and you cover them up and it gets dark and the air gets still in there, they'll be annihilated by wax moths. And then I do use paramoth on my supers when I store them, and I will use that on my brood boxes as well if I get a chance to stack them up if I have the paramoth available. But I do store my honey supers with paramoth every year. As far as, I guess part of that process of managing dead outs is looking at the shape of the box. What kind of shape is the box in? Is it can we reuse it? Most of them you can. Now I'll be able to reuse boxes forever with Greg's for the rest of my beekeeping career. But in the past, sometimes a lot of my boxes are rotten, and that's a good time to process some of those boxes out. Also frames, if the frames are in really bad shape, if they're getting old and black and stiff and the little cells are no longer hexagonal shaped, it might be time to process those frames out or reprocess those frames. And so it's really an opportunity. Dead outs are an opportunity to assess equipment and to replenish or refresh your equipment in some ways. It's not like 100% negative. Plus, the dead out gives you an opportunity. If the comb is still good, it helps the bees grow quicker in the spring when you put new bees in there, splits in there, and so forth. I've got quite a few boxes of comb that I'm going to use in a couple, next weekend actually when I do splits, and those queens will just start laying in there immediately. The bees will clean it up. They'll start putting eggs in there immediately, and they'll grow much faster that way if they don't have to build the comb. So that's kind of what I do with the dead outs. Sometimes if I get out there, it's too late. If they're full of wax moth webbing and stuff, if they're just totally annihilated, sometimes you can reprocess the foundation. You can just kind of scrape it off or pressure wash it off and re-wax it, or you can go ahead and process it out of your operation. So many things to do with it. But I look at dead outs, honestly, I hate them, but then they also can be looked at as an opportunity as well.
What about you, Brian? What do you do anything special for dead outs? Do you have a certain method or to the madness? Like
right now, I pretty much, we're we're below freezing. So mine, typically what I'll do, and for the ones I found the other day, I pulled the frames out where the clusters were, scraped the bees off just to get that out of there as much as what I could, and I just left them sitting right there. Now, 2 of them had Apame bottom boards, so I closed up the fronts. That way nothing, no pest or anything can get in there since there's no bees. But they're going to get packages installed on them. Like that comb, that is gold. That is, I say drawn comb is gold. And that's typically what I've done. Whenever I install packages, they get put on drawn comb, and literally within, typically when I go back 5-7 days later, the queen is out and you see eggs. So it's very fast. Same thing then when you do splits. You're not putting plain just bare foundation in there. You have drawn comb. So for dead outs anymore, I've learned that, yeah, it's a bummer you lost a colony, but when you start a new colony, you're not starting from scratch. So that's mainly what I do, is just protect the frames up until the point when I reinstall onto those frames.
That's really where packages really shine.
Yeah.
If you can get a late March, early April package, you can get those installed on that comb just ahead of when like prime critter season starts, where the wax moss and hive beet, when all those things are coming in for the spring cleanup. Like that's where packages are nice. But I do the same thing as Bruce. Like, gosh, I made when we were going through and pulling doubles off and getting everything downsized, or we were pulling triples down into doubles, and we were pulling all the extra boxes that they had burned through all the food late summer. I made such a huge mistake. We made a huge stack, like just a huge in the yard, just a massive stack, right? There's probably, I don't even know how many boxes, at least 80 to 100 boxes that were all kind of stacked up on their side and then kind of stacked up on like this big cube, right? And it was fine forever. But when that really, not only was the temperatures with the wind chill like down to them and a little bit below -30 with the wind chill, we had 40 to 60 mile an hour winds during that time period. Well, those boxes got hit by the wind, and now I got to go out and clean up this. There's just it looks terrible. It's horrible. There's this big just wind mess of boxes that got picked up and launched, 15-20 feet even away from where they were. It just poof came through and knocked all those over. But what I do, because everything's on 4 ways, if we've got a dead out, I do the same exact thing as Bruce. I will pop the box on its side so that the frames are getting like eastern western orientation breeze through it. I'll take my lid, put it right on top, and that's it, and then let them cruise. And then when it's time, if I get around to it, and if there's a cluster of bees in there, I'll pull the frame out and just knock the loose dead bees off and put the frames back in. I don't go in and pull out every little single bee and do this, and I leave those in there, and then the next round of bees, they clean all that up, no problem.
Yeah.
But even if the comb gets wet, if it gets rained on, if it gets a little bit funky, I'm not even worried about it. The net, whether it's a split, whatever that it is, repurposing that box. A lot of times what I'll do is then in the spring, if it's ever really hot and heavy and you can tell we're going to start really building well, I'll just take that box laying there and just put it on top. Now I know they've got 4 weeks. They don't need me. They're gonna be cruising that box, cleaning it up. So like you mentioned, it's a huge asset to have that much drawn comb to be able to do something with. And, if you can, throw a package on it, and it will not only preserve and protect the comb, but it gives it literally gives probably a 7 to 14 day advantage to the package. And they can really get going quick.
Hey, there was a question from Eddie earlier about how long to let them air out from paramoth after you take the supers off those stacks.
How long,
what realistically happens down here is by the time I pull those supers off in the spring, the paramoth is all evaporated off. It gets them through the fall, and I do lose a few boxes every year to wax moths, but very few. But I start pulling them off, and I think you're supposed to air them out for a few days, like I don't know how long, a day or two, just or maybe even a week. I don't know. But what I found is that by the time I put them in my truck, get them off the stack, first of all, they don't even hardly smell like paramoth anymore because it's pretty much evaporated off. And I usually get them out fairly early in the spring before the wax moths have a chance to get in them anyway. And I don't spend a lot of time just airing them out. I know you probably should, but by the time I pop them on the truck, they go to the bee yard with the wind blowing through them. You can't even tell. They'd have no scent of that. So you're supposed to let them air out for a while, and it's a good idea to do that. But I don't always have the opportunity to do that. Sometimes they'll air out longer than others, but that's just real. That's just realistically what I do, because you'll pop the lid off. You'll look in there. There's no paramoth left in them. It's all evaporated off pretty much. It'll do that over time. So that's why I think I'll lose a few boxes each year. It seems like, or have a little bit of wax moth damage in them. I think I probably don't apply it as often as I should, but it does a job. Probably 90 to 95%, if not more, my boxes are okay. So putting paramoth boxes on the same day. Yeah, I see. Mike, do you reapply? Mike, maybe you can answer this in the comments. Mike, do you reapply the paramoth during the year, or do you just apply once at the beginning? That would be a great question for him to answer there. I used to apply it 2 or 3 times a year. Like I'd apply it when I didn't have 200 boxes to treat, 200 supers. If I had like 15 supers, I would reapply it 2 or 3 times in the year. But now I just can't. I'm not going to stack those big 16 tall stacks and reapply it. So
yeah.
But it is a good idea.
Crazy.
It would be the best idea to let them air out for a few days, at least a couple of days. That is what you're really supposed to do. Yeah, he says he reapplies because they're very dark brood boxes. And so, yeah, the honey boxes with honey supers that don't have brood in them, and most of mine don't. A few of them have had some brood in them. Most of them don't. They are less likely to get infested with wax moths than the ones that have had brood in them. The ones that have had brood in them, if they don't get treated or if they're not open to air and sunlight, they will get absolutely annihilated. And even sometimes they still do if they've got dark comb in them, or comb that's mature and has had several rounds of brood in it. So that's a great point, Mike, and it would be a good idea to do that.
This next question is really great, and that could probably lead into a very long conversation. But the answer, in my opinion, we've already talked about a lot. And what I mean by that is, and it's a great question from sort of a beekeeper, Carol's apiary. Her question, I'm just hopping on. I'm not sure if you've talked about this, but how do you clean up after dysentery or nosema deadouts? I'm having an issue, first time ever. Let me just say this first. Carol, if you're on here listening, any chance that you were using sugar bricks or dry sugar of any kind, cakes for fondant? I have seen this with honey in the past when we didn't do any of that. But you know, when I really started seeing the squirts all over the front of the hive, on top of the top covers, and then what we used to see it all over the sugar bricks inside of the colony. What I found, it was actually the sugar. People are going to argue, and there's going to be gnashing and weeping and gnashing of teeth. When we stopped using dry sugar in the colonies for the wintertime, and we switched over to the Hive Alive fondant, it took care of that immediately. Now, I think it has to do with the type of carbohydrate, how much easier it is for the bees to digest and consume that inverted sugar, that fondant. I think it's way easier for them to digest and metabolize. So I think it's way easier on their gut, which is the big reason why we don't do mountain camp. We don't do sugar bricks. We don't do sugar cakes. We don't use dry granulated sugar for anything for winter feed. I think that is one thing. The other, I think the Hive Alive has the thymol in it. And I think that does help with some gut cleanliness and helps keep that gut in check. So Carol, what I would probably recommend doing is, if you're talking about cleaning them out, those dead outs, you know, I don't know about if the question is how to clean the bees or how to clean the equipment. If it's true dead outs, I guess there's no bees to clean up. Maybe it's the equipment. I'm not really sure how to do that. But if you're seeing your bees are struggling with that as they're coming out of winter, and you're seeing the squirts all over everything, if it's warm enough to feed liquid, I would try to get something with Hive Alive or thymol in it. And if it's still wintertime, at least try to get one Hive Alive fondant on there. and see if that helps in and of itself clean that up. That's what I have seen. Bruce, Brian, have you seen anything similar with the squirts and winter feed?
Last year I did. Last year I had those issues up in Ozark where I just really set those bees up to fail, and I think they had a pretty bad problem up there, and they just quit taking their food. I think I may have applied some Hive Alive up there. I did last year. The last 2 or 3 years I've applied the Hive Alive as an emergency basis pretty much only. This is the first year I went all in, so I don't know if I can really answer that question, but I know last year when I made those late season splits up in Ozark, and I put those really nice, some of your queens in there, Greg, I think some of Michael Palmer's queens in there, and just really set those bees up to fail. And it was interesting because they started to slurp the food down really quickly at first, and then they just quit taking food. When I knew there wasn't a flow, they just quit taking food, which meant there has to be something wrong with their gut. And they faded. They just died out. They had a hive beetle infestation in the middle of the winter time, which is unusual. You see a few, but you don't normally see as many beetles as bees when you open up a colony, it seems like. And so there was something that happened up there, and they did do a study on my bees up in Ozark, and they did have some nosema. One interesting thing that happened too is last spring, I just picked up a box up in Ozark from a dead out, and I took it down to Slocum, and I just added it to a colony as a second deep, and almost immediately, this was right after I made those early splits with the Hawaiian queens and some other. I just had a lot of really good things going on in Slocum, and that box, you saw the box, Greg, the other day. I had it set off to the side. It no longer does it have those bees in it. I think they actually died out, but that box is still covered in the dysentery. So that one colony, I think I just had one colony that was covered in dysentery, and those bees ultimately, they survived, but they never got real strong. And then I think they just kind of fizzled out. So I don't know if they actually had nosema, but as far as what to do with the equipment, I don't know if there's a way to get rid of the nosema spores, if healthy bees take care of that, or if technically you should get rid of those frames. I don't know what you should do with it. Is there a philosophy on that? Does anybody have any experience with that? What to do with it? I don't know that when I told Ian what my spore counts were on the nosema, he was just like, we don't even worry about it. That, I guess his coming out of the shed in the wintertime, they have a lot of that because they've been cooped up for so long. And so it's not uncommon to have some spores in there in the bees, if I'm not mistaken. But in my case, I don't think I'd ever had any significant issue at all with nosema. So I didn't really know what to do with it. But now the bees have all bounced back. They're looking pretty strong. My surviving bees are doing pretty well. And so I'm not sure what you should do with that equipment. If you should destroy it, if there's a way to clean it, I'm not sure what to do with it.
I would think there's a way to neutralize that. And then, you don't really know, is it really nosema, or is it maybe just the squirts, and if so, then maybe it's not quite that
I did have nosema counts, but every time you see, now there is, and I learned this too, there are two different types of nosema.
Sure.
Nosema, I think, is it apis nosema, apis. I think there's two. I can't remember what the two different ones are, but one of them, the original nosema, I think it may be called nosema apis, if I'm not mistaken. It causes the squirts. It causes the diarrhea. But the newer one, the newer nosema, anyone, if you know what the name of it is in here,
what is it, Serrana?
Serrana, it doesn't do that. It doesn't show manifest in near that strong of a way, and so you don't necessarily know from looking at the colonies. You can't see poop all over the hive and know that you have nosema serrana. And so, I guess, Brian, is that what you learned in your class? I know that, or have you learned that somewhere? I know that that's what my bee inspector told me. And so, if you see the squirts on your colonies, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have nosema. It could just be an upset gut from the bees for whatever reason. Greg, I think you mentioned some of those earlier.
Yeah, I haven't, like me personally, I haven't really ever had a nasty issue with nosema or anything like that. But you figure in the last, it's been 3 to 4 years, I've had Hive Alive liquid in my syrup. I've had the Hive Alive pollen patties, and I use the fondant. And Hive Alive has been proven to help against nosema. So they pretty much, for the last couple of years, they've had Hive Alive. So,
and anything, I mean, sometimes you do all the things right and you can't see why something would have a problem, and sometimes they still do, so if it's not a widespread thing, if you got a bunch of colonies, you did them all the same way, and it's only one, like you have outliers, I think you got to kind of maybe look and see if you can pick up something, but it could just be an outlier too. But you never know. Great question. Sam Mixon has a question here. Do you have any pollen coming in yet? One of my bees had pollen on their back leg last week. Brian, I'm not going to say this out loud, but this is where Bruce will probably do a humble brag and really get to rub it in on not just the quantity of pollen, not just the quality of pollen, but he might take this opportunity to talk about the color of the pollen.
For those who have seen, I don't know if they have a plant called henbit up north or not, HENBIT, but
yep,
that is the reddest, most beautiful pollen. It's just a perfectly red pollen that comes in. And Greg, we saw quite a few bees with the yellow pollen on their legs. I'm not sure what that was coming in. Some kind of
probably maples, probably
kind of like a creamy yellow color. Yeah. But then we saw most of them had that. But we saw some bees that had the perfectly bright red, beautiful pollen on their legs too. We saw a few of those, and so, but like I've told you guys, we don't have a lot of time down here where they don't bring pollen in. Nectar is different. We have some pretty long droughts of nectar, but when it comes to pollen, we just have a week here, a week there without pollen. I don't know where they get it in the wintertime, but it seems like they bring it in a lot of the year. So Greg, is maple pollen, is it yellow?
Well, there's a couple different, you talk about, you've got a couple different types of, in the Acer family, different types of maples, but typically there'll be somewhere I would say a pale yellow to kind of a beige, maybe lighter beige, and they're in that pastel muted color family. But we also have henbit, and that pops up in the woods first, the wood edges, and then actually on the forest canopy pops up first, and it kind of has that really distinct leaf and color, that greenish and then purple and that kind of structure. And then you got henbit, and then dead nettle comes a little bit later than two, but both are just phenomenal. And you just know that fire red, beautiful. It's like a Christmas ornament coming in, and you just see it and you're just like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah. It's more red than the YouTube symbol on the chat here. It's just so red.
Yep, for sure. Great question. Philip Montgomery asks, I'm in Southern Ohio. Love your videos. When do you start equalizing, and how many frames of brood do you leave at each time equalizing? Brian, you were hot and heavy with single brood management. Talk us a little bit. What did your spring equalizing look like, Brian?
Well, I'll tell you, last year I went from doubles to singles. This will be my first spring with truly just singles, so it's going to get interesting. I'm going to have to really keep an eye on it. Now, this spring, probably what I'm going to do, like I've got story and a half right now. There's no queen excluder. So it's going to get really tricky timing wise.
Yeah. Yep. I hate that part.
When I throw the excluder in between the deep and medium and add additional. And
you're assuming they're actually in the bottom box when you're ready, and they're not in the medium brooding up. Yeah.
Right. So it's going to get tricky with that. And then when I'm doing my splits at the same time. So it's going to get tricky. This will be my first year with it. I don't think it'll be that difficult. Typically, what I would usually do prior years is I would just split my colonies right in half. I just, I haven't, I know some people will say, well, you can take that 1 10-frame box and then you make 3 out of it, and then you build those up and that 1 turns into 3. I've always just split them in half. Now, prior years when I had doubles, I would literally just move a box. It was easy. Move the queen over, you're moving a whole box. But this year is going to get tricky because now I've got 2 different size frames on the same colony. So we'll see.
It's the worst. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Yeah. Now, I probably won't It'll just depend on the number of brood frames that I see, but I don't want to, so to say, hammer the colonies that I've got coming through the winter. I want them to produce a little bit. So, if they're wall to wall brood, I might, for those 10 frames, I might pull 6 out of them, or no, 4 out of them and leave 6. That way they still have a little bit of a higher colony population.
How old are those queens, Brian?
Huh?
How old are those queens?
Last year.
Well, then there's no. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, there's no reason why you can't let them build up and create a crop and just manage that swarm tendency.
Yeah.
Let them build you a nice heavy crop first, capture that asset, and then once you capture the honey asset, then split them down when they're the size that you want and there's way more flexibility. We're always in a hurry to just split everything, right? And you're compromising. It's either you're going to compromise the honey crop or the brood numbers, because if you split them too early, you're not making a summer crop on them at all.
Right.
It'll be a fall crop if we get it, right?
Yeah.
And if you aren't, it's a razor's edge. If you don't manage that swarm tendency just right, so you get the honey crop, get that pulled off, do a heavy treatment, and then split, requeen all of, like there's a little dance, right?
Yeah.
And when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad.
Yeah. See, and I've up to this point, I have never done that. I've always split early, and I've always had, an average honey crop. It's never been like outstanding. Like I've never had colonies that produced 90, 100 pounds each. But this year, I don't know.
The year, Brian.
Well, like I said, though, this year is the year when I definitely need to grow. So I probably will split early, because then if I can equalize and pull a couple additional splits later on again, if I can split twice, then I will. So we'll see, though. This year it'll be interesting. It'll be my first spring with singles. So truly,
Bruce, what are you going to say?
Well, he was asking about equalizing. What I do in the spring, especially now that I've got a source of early queens, is I tried this for the first time last year. Really, I just aggressively split my colonies with the queens that I was sent in February, which will be a couple of weeks from now. And so I don't necessarily equalize my colonies as much as I pull splits out of them and try and leave them as strong as I think they need to be. I think that does a couple things. Number one, it does humble the colonies somewhat, maybe helps break the Ursus swarm a little bit. And number two, it does give you more colonies. It helps you increase your numbers, obviously. And so last year, it just worked out really well for me. Last year, these queens I split in February, I mean, some of them produced at least one, if not two supers of honey. They grew into, I put them in nukes, and within a couple weeks, they were in singles. And then like a couple weeks later, they were in doubles. They filled the doubles up. And then when I made some queens of my own, when I grafted some, I think it was in May, I split however many cells I had that took, or how many ever cells I had. I split that number off. I broke them in half, set the box in another part of the bee yard, dropped a cell in there, and I still made a couple boxes of honey on those. So that turned them into single deeps, basically, right? And I still ended up making honey off of those. Some of those I ended up making at least one, if not two boxes of honey on them. So when you can split early with queens that are productive down here, you can really just grow and just have a really good honey crop off of those queens. It's a little more difficult, I think, in different parts of the country, but down here you have that opportunity if you get on it early enough. And I've never been able to do it this early until I found the source of queens, and so that really helped out a lot.
One of the things I'm seeing is a huge difference with northern and southern beekeeping is up here, things happen so hot and heavy. Like there's not a lot of time to let something mature and then grow into a flow. It's like it comes and then it's poof, where it seems like, Bruce, down where you're at, like you get the temperature warm up, you get some plants that come up and they kind of more on this takeoff phase.
That is
true. That helps you build things up some.
That's
your
true.
lights go out at the end of the year for sure, as far as heat and all that. But it seems like your build up seems to be a little bit more smooth than ours, where it's just like, oh, here's the maples. Boop, let's go.
Yeah, you have to watch it because you do have those little mini bursts in there. But if you're watching it, they do build up more. They build up earlier. I guess earlier is a better way to look at it. They build up earlier, and so the season is a little bit longer going into it. But once the honey flow hits, it's like 2 months and you're done. It's like hot and heavy. I tell people, and I've said this multiple times, I think that when the privet, if we have a spring flow, which some years it's not good, some years it is good, but typically the spring flow is kind of like a water hose coming in. They fill up, they get a little bit of honey off of it, a smaller honey crop. Around Mother's Day is when we harvested last year. And then when that tallow flips on, it's like a fire hose. It just comes in, they just fill the hives up so fast with honey. And then that's about a 2 to 3, maybe at most a 4-week flow. And then it's just done. We're just done. And so about mid to late June down here, you're looking at just, okay, how can we just make sure we got to keep them, get the mites down, get the hive beetles down. Man, those are some cool.
That is a crotch rocket bee right there.
That's the crotch rocket. But it's just a gradual build up. We're busy with bees. We can build up. Then the honey flow is really intense. You harvest your honey, and then it's like, well, here we are. It's the most miserable time of the year. Everybody's miserable, but we got to take care of these bees so they don't crash before the next year. And so, but I think it's a similar timeline, a similar process most places, but the timeline is different as far as when it happens. You guys are a month or two behind where we are here.
And how long all that is squeezed into? You might be a 2 week same sequence, but it might be 2 weeks longer, 3 weeks longer of a spread, or how tight it is. That's a good question. We're definitely going to talk a lot more about that, especially as we get to maple bloom. Until we get to maple bloom, we're not doing anything. There's no need for us to get in and crack and check on a lot of brood and things like that. Once we actually have the natural food source for them to really start to put brood on, that's when we need to be checking and seeing, okay, who's doing what, are the queens laying, and then start making those plans together. And we'll say it a million times, but just because you throw a pollen patty on or you have a pollen sub, that does not engage the bees to just boom start going into brood mode. You can't put pollen on and nectar on this early and expect them to just boom go into brood mode. They got to have all three of those things, in my opinion. They've got to have the carbohydrate, which is going to be that nectar or that syrup. They've got to have the protein, which either from the pollen patty or incoming pollen. But the most important thing that, in my opinion, that is the catalyst that kicks all that off, that lets them utilize those two things, is the days of sun. You got to have the warmth and the sun with the carbs and the protein, and then it's just off to the races. But until you get all three of those, right, you're barely making little tiny moves that are, I don't want to say insignificant, but you're not going to throw a bucket feeder on a colony and they're going to swarm. You're not going to throw a pollen patty on and then put on swarm cells. You got to have all three of those things.
It's kind of like, I wanted to mention Drew Jobber has kind of a good comment. This is what happens down here, and I'm not sure where he's located, but he says, my hives build up when it's too cold, then it's Swarmsville. Down here, the tendency, and Mike Berry talks about this a lot, is that, he's real careful not to feed his more than necessary in the wintertime and stimulate them, because you want them to peak right at the beginning of honey season. And Mike talks a lot about that. He's really good at kind of talking through his process.
Maybe the best.
So, he's famous. He's world famous for a reason.
World famous, Mike Berry.
But that is true, and obviously down here, we got people sending bees out for almond pollination around here, and you can artificially stimulate them pretty much all year, even in December. If you feed them constantly, they will grow even in December and January, and they send them off down here in January. Typically, they're in California now. The almonds they're starting that process out there now of getting pollinated, and so it's just important and critical to recognize, if you're a southern beekeeper down here, that if you start stimulating those bees too early, if you utilize pollen patties, which I rarely do, I've used them occasionally, but very rarely, or if you start feeding a lot of liquid feed and stimulating them to grow, you better be ready to deal with the results of that, the consequences, because if you're not careful, they will pack those boxes out so fast that they will swarm on you, and then you got bees in the trees. And so you got to be careful that you don't, if you want to stimulate them like mine, I've been feeding them Hive Alive pretty much all winter. But I'm going to split them here next week, a bunch of them.
Your 60s and 70s, you do all those things, 70s. And at 60 or 70, you're off to the races.
And you mentioned, Greg, sunshine. What'd you mention? Sunshine, carbohydrates, and pollen. What did you see in here? What did you see here on this Saturday?
Beautiful
saw
sunlight, which I've never seen all winter. Pollen coming in, and the most beautiful thing to see, fresh incoming nectar. Bruce's bees are going places. They're the best. They're the best I've seen this year. Yeah, but you had pollen coming in. You had nectar being stored. You had, by and large, gentle, calm, prolific, clean bees. And you had that beautiful fireball. There I was, Bruce's bee yard, and there's this fireball thing up in the sky making me squint like this. I had to find my sunglasses and put them on, and I was starting to have this, like, I hadn't felt it in a little while, this like trickling bead thing kind of going down. And I remembered, I did remember a video, a very specific short story long with Tom Sosman, which, by the way, I'll see here. Actually, I'll be in town tomorrow night. But anyways, short story long with Tom Sosman. And I believe the statement was made. Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the statement was made that typically, nearly, mostly, emphatically, that sweat runs down and bees run up. I could be wrong, Tom. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But here I am in Bruce's bee yard, squinting. What is this fireball thing in the sky? And sure enough, I felt it. Sweat running down. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It was huge. It was huge.
But guys, we've had a good time tonight, man. We've been going almost 2 hours. It doesn't feel like it, does it?
No, it does. Look at this. I'm getting tired. I get these really dark circles there. It's time for me to go to bed. We got 3 more starred comments, and I think we're going to have to call it, because I'm going to tell you why here in just a minute. Let's do it. Via honeybees, very smart comment. It's got to be coming from Melissa. Tom's probably snoring right now, so Melissa's on there. It says, Greg, when are you having events at your farm this year? JW and I are going on a road trip up north to you. That's probably Tom. Last thing Melissa wants to do is probably hop in the truck with JW and the dog and 3 cans of beefaroni from Missouri all the way out here. I could be wrong. I'm not judging. I'm not saying that I would know what Melissa would prefer to do on a road trip. I'm just going to say that might be a guy's trip. It's probably Tom making the comment. But hey, let's do this. Let's go on the record right now and say that we're going to have a fall convergence here. Wait a minute.
Might have to do it like this. Secret message for all the stream team. Fall convergence at Nature's Image Farm. Stay tuned.
No idea what's going on here, but it's getting really weird, guys.
I heard voices in my head.
A couple more, and then we're gonna cut and run. D Fortune 0813. How close can you put colonies to prevent the spread of pests and or viruses?
About like
I mean, I don't know about that. We put them right next to each other. Bruce and I are on 4-way pallets. They're only separated by the width of the hump of a W clip, the area in between there. If that, the boxes are usually nearly touching. We run stuff really close. I don't see like weirdness go from one box to the other, but thank God we haven't had any supreme weirdness go on as far as American foul brood or any kind of contagious mass spreading virus or bacterial things. We haven't seen that. So everything's fine until it's not. It's a great question. Bruce, I mean, you put your colonies real close together. I saw you. What's fun with working with Bruce's bees, it was like being at home, only it was way nicer and warmer. 4-way pallets, migratory lids, boxes are up on their side the same way, same type of feeders, just running through. It was so easy to work with Bruce because it was literally like working bees at home.
Yeah, we set up a game plan and we just went to work. It was a lot of fun. Just
boom. Had Jeff there, a wing guy. He's our line out guy. He's lining out all the next steps, and boy, did we really fly there. Maybe make this the last question, guys, because this will kind of lead us into what we start talking about here. And then the next couple, Bruce is going to be talking about it next week. I guarantee it. And we're going to be right behind him. We're going to be jealous as all get out.
My plan. Go ahead. My plan next week.
Go ahead, Bruce. I got a lag.
My plan next week is the topic is going to be spring buildup, so we'll talk about that some more next
There
week.
it
I
is.
think that'll be kind of the
Hashtag
topic of the
split them if you got them. Carol J. McCarthy Logsden asks here, on average, when do you do splits? Last year we had queen cells first week of March. Wow. On average, guys, when do you start, Brian? When do you start your splits?
Mine, it's usually second, third week of May in there. But last year, with the strange year that we had, I had a swarm when I was going over to just check and see how the colonies were, how they're building up. I pull in and it was like April 11th or 12th, and I see a swarm taking off out of one of my colonies. Second week of April. Now
Unbelievable.
Last year that was 5-6 weeks earlier than where we usually are. So we're usually second, third week May. Sometimes it just depends, but we'll see.
That is so late.
That's so listen to this guy. So late.
Man, well, Greg, you saw drones. I'll probably be seeing some sales when I pull
your
splits.
Drones were like, they were sexually ready. Like they're somewhere, somehow they're doing what they do. Right. Yeah. What I was actually expecting to see, like before we did that, just the size and the sound and the productivity of the colonies, like I was expecting to find at least a queen cell. So they're I mean, now when you get in there to make the splits, you might just find that you've got some. As a matter of fact, if you do that, any of the luau girls, any of those colonies that you find that made queen cells, I would make the split with the queen cells, because I would be extremely interested to see what they do when what those F1s do as they cross up with your whatever drone stock is there, because that's going to be a super huge, very critical piece of data that we can use moving forward. Huge.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
So the question, when do you do your splits? We were talking about swarm cells and swarms a little bit. And we can address swarms in one of these chats too, because last week I can't remember who it was kept asking about swarms, but I'm starting to do them next weekend here, and typically I haven't done them that early, but last year I did, and it worked out really well for me. The dangerous thing we have here in Alabama is February. Many times February down here is warm. You think spring is here, and then March hits, the first part of March, late February, early March hits, and it feels like winter again for a couple of weeks. And so we may have rain, we may have cold, and it's a little bit tricky. The splits, if you have a mated queen, if you have a resource of that, I think will go pretty well, which is what I happen to find now, which is awesome. But if you're trying to raise queens, if you're trying to graft and raise queens, it's a little tricky, because you just don't know if you do grafting in February and you've got a mature queen cell, and then you stick her in a colony, the last week of February, and you got 2 weeks of cold or rain or wind, and the queens can't fly and the drones don't fly, then you're up. You got a bunch of queens that are poorly mated, and so that is the danger of raising early queens here. But if you got access to mated queens, you can almost split here year round with mated queens. Late winter, November, December is a little difficult. You can do it, but it's a little difficult, I think. But pretty much the rest of the year, you could just about, maybe January, first part of January, or we had snow a couple of weeks ago, so 2 weeks ago. So yeah, but February, mid-February on, if you got access to good queens, mated queens, you can just about split here the rest of the year. So besides those middle 3 months.
I don't know, guys. I would say this question here, I think it's a split decision. Just see what I did there. Nobody. No.
Greg, I think you've got it. I could participate now. You've got it dialed in.
Yeah. I like that. Bruce isn't left out anymore.
I don't think. Did anybody get that? It's a split decision. Yeah. Nobody. Wow. I'll be here all night.
Anyway. Whew. Man.
Anyway, guys, it's we whatever we do, like our sponsors, if we go over 2 hours, we get severely penalized. We've got looks like 3 minutes and 8 seconds wrap this up. But before we get extremely penalized, what's going to happen if we get penalized is all of a sudden they're going to make the stream team break up. There's going to be 18 different bee chats going on Wednesday night. People are going to be freaking out like, which one do we watch? Which one do we care about? Which one is the greatest? Which one is the losers? And no one's going to know. It's going to get wild. Let's not do that. Let's stay focused. Stream Team Wednesday, 8 p.m. Next week, whose channel? Bruce.
Yeah, right here.
Bruce's channel.
So, so next week though, it's going to be an exciting chat because I happen to have a instant vape light that I used in a video right before the EV Expo that is going to be given away next week.
Unbelievable.
So come in, and I
You heard it
don't
here,
know.
Bruce, not me, Bruce. There you go.
I don't know what time of the video that will happen, so you have to come and watch the whole thing.
Probably the very.
I don't know.
Part.
Who knows? The very middle. No, I mean like
very
I mean early.
somewhere.
But anyway, we're going to do that. We're going to do that next week. Maybe we'll just see. But yeah, we'll do that. And then I did want to say that for those who missed the first part of this video tonight, we talked about an incredible experience we had. Greg came down, delivered some Enduro Hive boxes. On my Instagram, B-Man Bruce, and on YouTube at Bruce Jenny, I did a reel that turned out. It's like 90 seconds long. It's really cool. It's really a neat reel. It's maybe the coolest one I think, or my favorite that I've ever done. I don't have it on the YouTube channel. YouTube shorts are a little more difficult for me. I just haven't figured them out, and I don't do a lot of reels or shorts, but I am working on a longer form version of that video that I'm working on now. That'll be probably dropping in the next couple of days. But if you missed the first part of this video, I would recommend you go back and watch it because we talked for a few minutes about what an awesome experience that was. Greg brought the Enduro Hive boxes. We had some folks come over from Mississippi. We had some folks from Alabama, and just had a marvelous time, a wonderful time. And then on Saturday, Greg and I and Jeff, who came down with Greg, we were able to work my bees, and Greg actually placed the first of his boxes on my. I let him put the first one on. It was awesome. He was able to actually be replaced one of my older rotting boxes, and he put it on there, and it was just a really neat experience. Went through my bees with me. I got a lot of good ideas, and we consulted a lot about our bees, and it was just a phenomenal day. And so that video will be coming out as well. I'm going to get out of that experience. I'm going to have at least 2 and possibly 3 videos, and they'll be coming down on the channel soon. But next week, 7 o'clock on my channel at Bruce's Bees, we're going to talk about spring buildup. I think is going to be the topic. That's what I'm thinking right now. And we're going to give away an instant vape light somewhere during that video. So come ready to put a hashtag, whatever we decide to say.
Speaking of instant vape lights, if you're going to St. Louis this Saturday for the EMBA workshop, make sure you stop by and see us at Nature's Image Farm. Not only will we have instant vap compacts, instant vap lights, not only will we have the best oxalic acid on the market, Easy Ox, we'll have that there too. But we're also we have the best of everything, guys. The best vaporizers, the instant vaps. The best oxalic acid, the Easy Ox. And the best wax dip boxes on the market. We're going to have them at the EMBA conference. You do not want to miss it. Enduro Hive, wax dipped equipment, right there, St. Louis, Missouri. For more info, go to just Google EMBA. Here, actually, I think I got a tab right here. Eastern MO Beekeepers.com. You can find your way from there to the events. Eastern MO Beekeepers.com. You don't want to miss it. Who's going to be there? Amazing people are going to be there. That's who. Miss Natalie Summers will be speaking. Bob Benny's going to be speaking. Corey Stevens is going to be speaking. Mr. Matushi is going to be speaking. And there's going to be some great vendors there. We're going to be there. We'll have the lights up, the cameras up. We're going to be having conversations, recording some great content. And maybe, just maybe, if Melissa will let Tom, I don't know if she will. I think she keeps him on a very, very, I don't want to say tight leash. She keeps him on a very tight schedule. Okay. I don't know if he's going to be so very busy So I won't put him on the spot, but there maybe, just maybe, I am going to his home turf. Maybe, just maybe, if I can get maybe JW to help wrangle him in there, right? Maybe we can get Tom Sosman for another short story long with Greg and Tom. Wouldn't that be fun? If you're going to the conference, make sure you stop by and say, hey, it's going to be great seeing so many folks. I know, I'm trying to think, the furthest person I know is probably coming from out west. I think Mr. Brian Zavada from Flower Street Farm is making the trek. He's got some fun news. We'll be doing some speaking with one of his bee clubs there. That's pretty cool. So I think, yeah, Colorado, farthest west that I know. Who knows? We'll see who can break the record. Anyways, oh guys, we went over 2 hours. We're going to be demonetized, dehumanized, and then StreamTeam platformized. I mean, what's going to happen next? Next Wednesday, the StreamTeam is probably, the whole entire group, all of us, is probably going to be disbanded, and it's going to be some other rogue channel that's going to take over. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, Bruce. I need you to dial it in for next Wednesday.
Listen. If it's just 3 of us, we'll be here. We'll be here even if it's just 3 of us.
If it's just us 3, we're going to be here, guys. We're here for them, but guys, I'm here for you. Brian, final thoughts around the horn? Todd Prater from California. Did I just see that right? That's the wrong comment. Todd Prater from California is coming in. Mr. Loma Vista himself.
It's going to be huge.
It's going to be huge. That is the furthest west award.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I can add is just watch next week. Win an instant vape.
Why wouldn't you? It's going to be huge. Bruce, final thoughts?
I don't have any. I think we've covered all the stuff I got in my brain.
Unbelievable. We have opened up the noggins and emptied them all out. That's really doing something. I see. That's why we don't go over 2 hours anymore.
You know, I was so burnt out like 2 or 3 months ago, and I'm so stoked now for bee season. I'm just as excited as I've ever been, probably. And it's just a different, it used to be just the wonder of it all. Now I actually feel like I have a plan, and I worked a similar plan last year. It worked well for me, and this year I'm going to try to dial it in even a little bit more.
Look at that.
And but similar, I'm going to have the same blueprint this year and just try to do things a little bit better. We've got our honey harvesting process pretty good, but just actually the management of the bees, I'm going to try to be more efficient and utilize a similar blueprint, like I said, but just make it a little more efficient. And we're going to see what happens. I'm excited, super excited about it. I'm excited to get your boxes on my colonies and replace the rotten ones, as I go through them. And maybe we'll have to do another Alabama convergence of Endura Hive and creators, and just that was
the
coolest
spring
thing.
fling every year, man. That just is so nice. It just gets me pumped.
So anyway, but that's really it. I'm just I gotta get these videos edited. I just got I still have some Bee Expo stuff I'm trying to figure out how to do. So I've got a lot on my plate, but I'm excited about it. Just full steam ahead.
Awesome. Well, because what, Brian?
I said good stuff.
Good stuff. Well, this next week we're going to St. Louis for the EMBA. See, after that we've got, I think it's the Tri-State here in Ohio to go to. Speaking at the Medina Club this spring here in Ohio, doing a little online talk with Brian Zavada, one of his Colorado clubs. Details coming soon on that. Going down to Kentucky to be a part of a bee school down there. Clark River area. Man, what else? There's probably a bunch more. I'm leaving them out. It's exciting times. We're traveling around the country, delivering wax tipped equipment. If you have a bunch of folks who are bee clubs and it doesn't matter where, let's get together. Let's maybe have you guys be another stop too. And we'll bring a whole load of equipment out to you too, meet you, turn it into a thing. Hey, we're trying to grow this business, and we really appreciate all your guys' support. It means everything to us. If you're in the Ohio or surrounding states, you're looking for packages or nukes, don't wait very much longer. They're calling for shortages. I don't know what the situation is going to be like, but if you're thinking you might want to get on the list, get those orders in now. naturesimage.farm.com. We'll help you any way we can. Other than that, guys, we're going to see you next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Bruce's Bees channel for the big, great, hugely, bigly Instant Vap Light giveaway. Don't want to miss it. Be there. Be square. As always, we want to remind you to be the lighthouse and be the change you want to see in this world. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.